In a small town where everyone knew each other's name, stories of kindness were rare, but they carried a weight that echoed through the streets. Today, Emily's simple act would become one of those stories, an act that would not only change her life, but inspire a ripple of generosity that would spread far beyond what she could ever imagine. It all started with a decision to offer a free haircut to a struggling Vietnam veteran, Frank, and though it was meant to be a small gesture, it would soon set in motion events that no one could have predicted. The hum of electric clippers buzzed softly in the background as Emily carefully adjusted the cape around the older man's shoulders. His name was Frank, a man with a lifetime of stories etched into his features. His face, weathered by time and experience, told of years spent in service to his country. Frank's eyes, though tired, held a warmth and gratitude that made him seem like someone who had seen both the best and worst the world had to offer. "I really appreciate this, Emily," Frank said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of humility. "I've been trying to save up for a haircut, but things have been tough." Emily smiled gently as she ran the clippers along his hairline. "Don't worry about it, Frank. Today, it's on me." Emily had always believed in the power of small, meaningful gestures. She'd grown up watching her single mother work 2 jobs, yet somehow always find time to help neighbors in need, whether it was bringing over a hot meal or watching someone's kids while they worked late. From an early age, Emily had vowed that if she ever found herself in a position to help, she would do so. As she worked, her mind briefly wandered back to her mother's example. She knew the world was often full of challenges, but acts of kindness, no matter how small, were the threads that wove the fabric of community. Emily had promised herself she'd live by that principle. Her boss, Mr. Stevens, watched the exchange from the counter, his face hardening as he noticed Emily didn't ring up Frank's service. When Frank finished, thanking her profusely, and left the salon, the tension in the room thickened. "Emily, my office." "Now," Mr. Stevens called, his voice tight with displeasure. In his office, the air was cool and sterile, a stark contrast to the warmth Emily had tried to create with her small gesture. Mr. Stevens didn't waste time with pleasantries. "What you did today was unprofessional and against company policy. This is a business, not a charity," he said, his words cutting through the silence. Emily's heart sank. She took a breath, trying to explain. "But Frank's a veteran. He couldn't afford the cut, and—" "I don't care about your excuses," Mr. Stevens interrupted, his tone harsh. "You're fired. Pack your things and leave." The words hit Emily like a physical blow. She had expected some form of reprimand, but this felt different. She had stood up for someone who needed help, and now she was paying the price for it. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She gathered her things quickly, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. She hadn't regretted helping Frank, no, she would never regret that, but the sting of losing her job was undeniable. Outside, Emily sat on a bench, staring blankly at the sidewalk, wondering how she was going to explain this to her husband, Ethan, who was already working overtime just to make ends meet. She pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders, the cold wind doing little to numb the ache in her chest. Just then, a sleek, black SUV pulled up in front of the salon. The door swung open, and a tall man in a sharp suit stepped out. Emily wiped her eyes, unsure of what to expect. He approached her with a friendly smile. "Are you Emily Carter?" he asked, his voice warm, yet authoritative. "I'm Mayor David Sinclair." Emily blinked, confused. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" The mayor nodded. "I just spoke with Frank. He told me what you did for him today. That small act of kindness meant the world to him. People like you are exactly what our community needs more of." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had no idea how to respond. "Thank you, but—" Before she could finish, Mayor Sinclair turned toward the salon. A few moments later, Mr. Stevens emerged from the door, looking pale and disoriented. He looked like someone who had just realized he'd made a colossal mistake. "Mr. Stevens," Mayor Sinclair said firmly, his voice carrying a weight of authority. "I've just posted about Emily and Frank's story on my social media accounts. The town is rallying around them. You might want to reconsider your decision if you don't want a PR nightmare on your hands." Mr. Stevens muttered something under his breath, his face flushed with embarrassment. It was clear he hadn't expected this. After a tense silence, he shifted uncomfortably before extending an offer. "Look, Emily, I'm sorry. I was out of line. I'll reinstate your position. Just, please come back." But Emily shook her head, her voice steady and resolute. "Thank you, but no. I can't work for someone who doesn't value compassion." Mayor Sinclair smiled approvingly. "Good choice. In fact, I've been looking for someone just like you." Emily's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "Our community center is in desperate need of someone to coordinate outreach programs, someone with a heart for service, who understands what it means to give back. We've been searching for the right person, and frankly, I think you'd be a perfect fit." Tears of gratitude welled up in Emily's eyes as she tried to process the offer. The weight on her chest began to lift, and for the first time in hours, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. "I'd be honored," she said, her voice thick with emotion. By the time evening fell, the entire town was buzzing with the story of Emily's selfless act. Strangers began reaching out, offering their support to both Emily and Frank. Donations poured in for local veteran organizations. What had started as a simple act of kindness, a free haircut for a struggling veteran, had ignited something much larger, a wave of generosity that spread throughout the community. That night, as Emily sat with Ethan and their 2 young children at the kitchen table, she reflected on the unexpected turn her day had taken. She had lost her job, yes, but in its place, she had found something far greater, a sense of purpose. Sometimes, standing up for what's right, no matter the cost, can lead you to something even more fulfilling than what you leave behind. Emily realized that it wasn't grand gestures that made a difference in the world, but rather the quiet, selfless acts that reminded people of their shared humanity. And in that moment, surrounded by her family and the warmth of her home, Emily knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.